talking about question and answer. First question. Who is Floris?
That's a good question. Well, I can have like a really elaborate answer to that.
Yeah.
I think Floris is someone who's discovering that he's far more than just the singular name given to him, and he's just wait, I flip talking in third person about yourself is always. I always think it's
weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like. Yeah, it's a bit funny. No, I think I'm like truly starting to understand that there's much more about like this name is just what they gave me, but there's far more than just this the physical body that I inhabit. So who's Floris? I think he's just like you, and like you is just another body through which like the greater thing speaks with the thing we also observe in the outside world, you know. Yeah.
And how important do you think it is as this, you know, you've described like the body, that other things flow through to be doing what you're doing, you know, to not be conforming to society, and nothing against conforming to society, but the road you've chosen is the maker road. The harder road, you know, it's very comfortable for a lot of people to take that normal job, to be working the 9 to 5, to have the mortgage, to have the car payments, you know what's coming in every month.
Yeah.
Like as a maker, how important, like what does it mean to you to be a maker, and how important is that to you to being Floris?
Well, there's no other option. I think if I don't do it, I think I'm too sensitive for life, and I get too confused about the way life unfolds on me that I would not be able to live. I would become very depressed, followed by much worse things, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's just it's a necessity. It's not even a decision, I think, or like it's a because sometimes I think about how it would be to know that you get money on the end of the month.
Yeah.
That you can support yourself in this very cold world in a much more comfortable way. But then I would not, you know, I would not enjoy life with this purity and would not perceive things with such clarity as I do now. And then that doesn't weigh up to the benefits of a more maybe conventional, comfortable life. Yeah.
You say there how you perceive life. How do you perceive this journey that you're on?
Like a very small step in a very big chain.
Mm-hmm.
And I perceive this journey as just this single life as more of this is just another chapter of a very much bigger story, which lays underneath, a very mystical one. Mm-hmm. One we all try to describe and catch, you know. Can I show it? I made a drawing the other day because I was calling with my girlfriend. This is it, you know. I thought this is it. This is us catching the butterfly.
Yeah.
And then this is our eternal connection to this feeling that we're like a very small part of the bigger chain. Mm-hmm. It's a very cosmical sensation. It's it's an eternal sensation. It's something which gets rid of all it twists your perception of time. It makes you realize that you're that you're part of this big mystical journey. But when we like sit on it and meditate and we observe the thing, it's actually there, you know.
Right in front of us.
And right in front of us.
Yeah.
But when we start to try and take it, you know, or run after it, and I had to draw it for myself because I had to remind myself to not because I knew I was on an edge of like I'm either getting in a very like I'm either entering a very dark episode where I'm completely starting to forget about this and I'm starting to chase the butterfly again, or I could use this, or I could channel the same energy and do the right thing with it. And doing the right thing is staying, like not falling for the worldly desire to grab it, because it's a very worldly desire to want to catch it, the butterfly. It's like, it's isn't that what religion is? Trying to institutionalize this feeling someone once had, like writing it down. This is a set of rules. This is how you reach that place. If you as humanity follow those rules, you will reach this enlightenment. It doesn't work like this, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's a...
And that's so I'm not remotely religious, and we talked about this briefly earlier. The way that religion has... This is definitely still a Maker's podcast, by the way. The way that religion has institutionalised things, and it's not just religion, I think anything that gets institutionalised, we eventually, or I hope everyone reaches a level where you start to push back against it, because there's something really beautiful in that, pushing back against it. You learn so much about yourself on the field that doesn't have rules, right? So, like we're talking about, there's this book, Fathered by God. I've seen Grizzly Forge posted a picture of it. He's reading it. Don't know if he's religious or not. And it's sat, and I'd done this weekend, this men's mental health weekend a couple of weeks back, sponsored by Ross at Finiston Clothing. And a lot of the teachings that were in that, I noticed were in the chapter log of this Fathered by God.
Yeah.
But the fact it had God on the cover,
Yeah.
I felt the need to push away.
Yeah.
Because it felt it's the institutionalised religious version.
Yeah.
Now it's not that I'm against religion in any way. It's just I didn't feel that I was part of that.
No.
I didn't feel that would then speak to me.
Yeah.
We've got friends in America that are very religious, and they're very healthy because of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that because it has the word God in it, it wouldn't speak to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's like the field where this term is being used for and sometimes this there's like this field of tension where you don't really understand if someone is speaking from this institutionalized perspective or a very personal experience with because then like I also have these friends where we can talk about it, and then I have friends who now start indeed putting the term God on it, and I become less and less triggered by it because I see
because you now don't feel that it's an institutionalised version, it's just it's an umbrella word.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, I totally get you.
Yeah.
It's also, but I'm seeing maybe I have to fight it less and just if this is what, because if this is what humanity has been like talking about for all as long as humanity, like, you know, as soon as they started writing, this was about these type of, like, I think, you know.
Yeah, everyone can't be wrong, right?
No, it cannot. There must be like a sort of a, it's like putting yourself in a perspective. I don't know. I'm just here observing the thing. Then it's like then it's really, it's the humble side of things is really like trying to see maybe there's like a certain. This is what they mean actually maybe about it. Maybe when they talk about they talk about that eternal feeling, and they talk about that very personal connection and that sensation of feeling like it's a sort of a state of bliss, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not always a state of bliss, because you have to move through certain things which are very like the physical world knows just is like a given thing that we know is suffering, like as in suffering because we value it as a bad thing, you know. We look at it as a thing which, but like it can be that like in these events which are we judge as bad, there's a hidden lesson which is. It's grand and is a possible opening and a door to this connection to the eternal, you know.
A door, a connection. Like the bridge is there. There's a part in your brain, the ACC. Andrew Huberman and Huberman Lab podcast talks about it, and the coach that I was on this weekend with, David Miller of Mantra Men's Work, and he's got a podcast called Forging Fathers. They talked about it, the ACC, and it's about that suffering. And it's the same reason that, you know, you do your ice baths. It's the same reason why I've started doing ice baths a few weeks ago, and like teaching yourself the stillness in that suffering, it seems to open something, man.
Yeah.
It just opens something up.
Yeah, and it's like a universal lesson which can be applied to all these facets of life.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I think the water is like a really easy, accessible teacher there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just an element, you know?
Yeah. It's an element we've all got access to.
Like, and that's the fascination I have for the fire. It's also that element. It teaches me that same lesson. But the water is it translates in very directly bodily sensations, you know?
Yeah.
You go in the cold water, your body feels very, physically very uncomfortable. And you cramp up if you do not know how to control the situation. You feel pain maybe even when I walk barefoot to the back.
Yeah.
If I had the moments in real winter where I couldn't move my toes and the panic kicks in and all these things, and it's amazing because you see, like, once you're in there, there's something which is beyond this, like the physical sensation, which observes the sensation, and that's what all these gurus talk about, you know. Like and it's what you learn through meditation is that the actual thing that you are. So now to make the final bridge back to who's Floris Postmes, he's discovering that he's the observer, you know, instead of the one being locked in with the experience, and that means that I'm trying to really. The majority of my work is not even the physical work there in my studio, like manifesting in the message in the material world. It's truly cultivating such a safe space in this vessel that it can move through with ease. That the message can move through with ease. That I'm not blocking it out. So that when I feel an urge or when something is coming, that I'm not the structure which I gave this body, like the image I shaped around Floris, is not withholding me from letting the message come. That's the main work, to like create a space where you can just like invite the experience to come, you know. And I think that's what my work is also about, is vice versa. It's like creating also a space, quite literally what I'm doing with the second space, where I'm being invited for such experience, you know.
Yeah.
And creating object which does the same, which where the object is about ritual, you know, far more than anything else. It's about like these. That's why knives have been the thread through all, because the knife it's the thing you create with it. The food is it's a core thing for our human existence, you know, for like taking good care of the temple that we inhabit, like.
Yeah.
And it's we've derived from the ritual that it should be, actually, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like taking care of yourself should be a beautiful ritual, which you should do with all attention and all care. And I try to make the object which facilitates that journey towards that thing.
That. Yeah.
And that it's much more than it is anything else, you know. And it's facilitating that journey, and at the same time it's capturing my journey. So you see, it's like an ongoing thing, and that's what I like about making objects which find like sort of a continuation within creating, because this gives me that feeling of the eternal, because it just ensconces the joy and my sensation of what of this moment into the object, and it allows another person to achieve it through the object that I created, and so we get like a cycle, and this.
Your work becomes a link in that cyclical chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your work's just and we talked about this again earlier, like some of the, and I've got the utmost respect for artists and people that make, you know, homewares and bits and bobs, but the makers that make tools, whether it's, as I said earlier, whether it's saddles or whether it's knives or whether it's hammers or even tables and chairs, and like they're things that we use, they're tools of our existence in a way. You know, what you're describing there is, and we can talk later about the weird Instagram meta ban of knives. Like, a knife wasn't a weapon until it was weaponized. A knife was a tool.
Yeah.
A knife was the first tool after a rock.
It says more about the fact that they regard it as being a weapon, says more about their mentality than it says about mine, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. All of the knife makers I know and that we feature, none of them make weapons. They make tools. Now, whether it's for hunting and skinning deer, or whether it's a chef's knife, whatever it is, it's a tool.
Yeah.
In the same way a hammer is.
Yeah.
In the same way a pen is to many people.
Yeah, but at the same time, I talked about this when Jack was here, through which you came, the photographer. Yeah, this is like what. That's also, and there lies also my fascination, because at the same time, it is also like it's on the edge of becoming the weapon and becoming. So it is either the tool for creation, or the opportunity for destruction, which is also the human part.
Yeah.
And if we do not acknowledge that that's also in our nature, that the destructive is also our nature, then we cannot. If we look at the horror and the terror in the world, and we see all what's happening, and we completely distance ourselves from it, and we say, no, this is not us. You know, you step away from it in completion, then that's not where we truly transcend to, like where we can transcend such recycling of trauma and all this pain, if you start to see that you can, in a way, you identify even with this violent behavior, because it's also what is within you as a human yourself, because you recognize that this is just it's just you also have that shadow, which is, if you would not have negotiated with it in the proper ways, it would have taken you over and you would have been in the same place, maybe. Yeah. There's the possibility,
and that's the same argument for the removal of history in some places, and certainly certain history books that are being removed from school circulation. As soon as you forget that is possible, you guarantee it will happen again. Yeah. The minute you forget that that's possible, or the minute you force the forget of that being possible, it will happen again. Yeah. Every time. Yeah. So it's on you go. No. So how do you talk about you being a vessel in which this sort of creativity flows through in your work as a knife maker, and I want to talk about how your work's changing, because I think we've landed at a really interesting point in your work changing, or not changing, because I think your work's actually not changing. I think evolving would be the better word, or maybe repurposing. A lot of makers, certainly in metalwork, and certainly in my background with metalwork, is we've forced things to be a shape. Straight lines, very defined radiuses. Yeah. They're all there because and in my world as an engineer, or his previous world as an engineer, that is that shape and that size because it fits here, or because the numbers make it work. Yeah. What's your take on it?
Yeah. I think that's that's just the interesting point, is because that's the sort of, I've been trying to, this is what has been interesting me for the past years already. Like this, where it's about more like trying to get in a dialogue with what's happening, and possibly can I ban out myself so much that I just become like a sort of I just become the body which through which the material can truly speak, because my voice is somewhere way in the background or something. I don't know, like you can get very analytical about it, because like to a certain extent you will remain human and you will have like this sense of like wanting to control, but I think it's like a sort of an old world thinking. It's like a repetition of a history. If we as humans want to be in the position of the controller always, I think like if we want to move on in general, as humanity, I think we just have to really start like reintroducing the fact that there's other valid voices too in this experience of life, you know, and that and we can give those valid voices, we can give them a place, you know. We don't have to hide them in somewhere. So when something happens and we regard it, that's what we talked about. We have this like lampshades that I was making.
Yeah.
And I had to move away a bit from knives because they are really fixed in their performance. And when I lean in a bit more with like the furniture and so on, I can play a bit more with this like the performance side of things. And so I can now finally start to play a bit more with these imaginations that I always had, where these lines they start taking control, and the shapes they start taking control, and all that I'm doing is just putting it in a conceivable, like something which is conceivable for the human eye. And like that's a like, you know, maybe how far can I get that? That's where I want to try to move. How far can I just let happen what happens? Don't intervene with what happens, but just let the elements speak. And like in essence, like it's the elements which speak, but it's the same drive force also which brought your life and my life. It's that same drive force which brought our human life. That same drive force is also creating what's happening there on the fire, you know. And I think that's a cosmical thing that goes like somewhere way between the stars. And and if this comes to be through the material world, then I just want to try to see if I can just facilitate this journey. And if I can get, I already know, I just gave my body and my existence to letting it come, you know. I don't know, where do I want to make the bridge now?
You don't have to make the bridge. Some statements don't need to be bridged.
No, okay.
So I think so you're talking about letting it be.
Yeah.
How do you approach your knife making in that way? And how has that changed from years past to now? Because there's obviously an amount of letting it be where you just entirely let it be and the steel just burns to nothing.
Yeah,
right? And actually what you become is just a steel burner.
This can, yeah.
There's a somewhere in
there's
between.
And then it can become overly conceptual, you know. Also, so that's like that's like, of course, that's not what I desire to do or want to create, you know.
Yeah, because there's a point here where people will be listening up to now, 20 odd minutes in, thinking you're a conceptual artist, because the sort of I don't mean it in a negative sense. The whimsical nature in which you're speaking is very detached from reality, detached from performance.
But it's all true the experience of what the actual fire tells me. And when I talk about like this in metaphorical senses about the fire telling me something, it's not that the fire actually whispers in our human language to us.
Yeah.
This is da 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 da. When you read like the great books, like some great books which describe fishermen on like a lake, listening to the water, and they learning all and everything about life about the river, it's the same thing. It's not about. It's just a mirror of what's happening within. Yeah. So when I watch the fire, when I see something burn, and I feel a discomfort within my body that I need to act on and intervene in order to do something, and instead of giving in with that desire which is programmed in with me, I do the opposite thing, and I witness that compulsive behavior. Then all of a sudden beauty arises, But before that beauty arises, something has to die within, you know.
Yep.
And that's what that's it basically. So it's like constantly searching for death of that structure in order for a new birth to arise.
And I think the blacksmithing and the work you do is a really good example of that, because as humans, certainly in the more modern ages, fire is like open flame is seen as a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, because it is a massive destructor, right?
Yeah.
That is what we see it as, a massive destructor. And when you're heating up metal, and having done a bit of blacksmithing and stuff, when you're heating up metal, there's a point in which, especially when you start, you're like, shit, that's getting really hot. I need to get that out of there.
Yeah.
And usually it's 10, 15 seconds from just leaving it in a little bit more. Yeah. And then it's really easy to work with. Yeah. But actually you pull it out too early and it's really difficult to work with, and you struggle through that difficulty rather than trusting the workpiece to be heated up further.
Yeah.
Did you always have this mindset when you started, or is this something you've learnt through making?
No, because I was the thing is that I wasn't the advantage there in my journey is that I wasn't taught academically or anything.
Yeah.
So I wasn't put up with an exaggerated amount of nonsense beliefs which I have to get rid of first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is often the case.
Yeah.
Which is most often the case. And this is what I learned from the guy who mentored me to a certain extent. If it is someone who mentored me, then I was 2 weeks with an artist who it was 2 weeks. It was enough to expose me to the right sounds and then guide me in the direction of finding my own voice. Mm-hmm. And it's only now after these years that I start to understand what he was saying to me. He was saying things like, I'm just harvesting out of the universe, and I didn't get it. But this is what we are doing, you know, harvesting out of the universe. There's something. That's what I told about this Rick Rubin book. He describes it as a source and a sort of a world of ideas, and the world of ideas they load into the material world, and you know, if they don't find this my vessel, then they will find yours, or they will find yours, but they will come. Mm-hmm. I just have to allow it to happen. And what was your question again?
I was talking about when you started. Did you have these ideations, or has your work taught you these ideations?
Yeah, it came basically through the work, because what I said is I didn't have to get rid of an exaggerated amount of academic beliefs which were put on me. But still, I was like surrounded. Like I learned to craft by doing it, and from watching people who are really involved with like the craft, and people who are really into the craft, which is for me, and I had to go a much more solitary way, because I feel the craft community, they lock very much in with like the physical, like the physical world, where it's about their mind, their idea, their body manifesting the idea, and the material which has to learn to them. And if the material, and if there's something happens, then I did something wrong or something. So I basically learned it because I was alone a lot along my journey, and these things happened, and they evoked some sort of feeling within, like which was like a sort of another fire which nobody really told me about. Maybe my mentor he spoke about it to me, but I didn't get it then. I didn't understand it. Yeah,
it's two different things from it being told to you versus you understanding it, right?
I get that.
At what point did you feel you really understood that message?
Maybe now I'm starting to truly understand it.
Okay.
Really?
Or like until recently, the past year maybe, or after 3 or 4 years of letting those ideas spook in me, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to read a coherence in what the material tells me, what has been already investigated by great psychologists, by great philosophists, by great artists, by great scientists. We are all talking about the same thing.
In different words.
In different words, different languages.
Yeah.
So the human, the worldly language. This is also what this mentor Sander, he's named. We didn't speak much. That was not much of a conversation. We already spoke more in this podcast than we spoke in those 2 weeks together.
Really?
Honestly.
Wow. Do you think there was power in that though? Do you think there was power in the fact that you didn't speak much?
Yeah, because the realizations I had to undergo, they were not. If we would have had this conversation, he would have blasted these things my way. I would not have understood it.
Yeah.
You'd almost
I would have pushed it away.
Mm.
He just let it happen. He was and I don't know if he did it consciously, and he was aware of the fact that if he would perceive it with such silence, that I would understand it. But it did, you know. It did really come into me. But it was because he created something which was a very feelable thing, just a human atmosphere. That's also what I'm trying to do now, you know. Create this atmosphere where this speaks, because I allowed the message to pass through me and come and manifest into the physical world. Now this object that I made, it speaks the same message that I do in a different language, much less direct, but it's the same thing. And if you create like he did, spend a whole lifetime creating an environment with all objects which have this message, what do you think? You get like this information, you get it blasted down onto you as an individual, but just from from a level you cannot perceive in the verbal sense, you know. It's another frequency, you know, and this is how somehow it worked. It did something to me.
And that's the frequency you feel like you're tuning into now.
Yeah. Where I'm also being able to regard, like I'm also starting to understand that I'm on a different journey than Sander, who mentored me. I'm on a different part of the bigger chain. The world needs a different thing from me than he did back then.
Yeah, because there's a timeliness involved in that, as well as a location, as well as there's so many different things involved in it. To think that you would become the next link in that chain is
doesn't
bizarre.
Work. Like it's bizarre.
Yeah,
because the Rick Rubin book, who talks about the ideas, I think he also writes about like how it's connected to a timeline indeed or something. And it's like for sure, like the world. It screams for a very different thing right now than it did when he was undergoing his journey, and he understands also that, like probably like, and so I like that he just, and by living that your message becomes an eternal one which lives on in my journey, which through the fact that I will inspire another one will live on in another one, and there you have like the very tangible explanation of what you are when you talk about this chain. You are just like passing it on, you know, the whole.
Do you think as a maker your work becomes a better show of you than you can communicate? You know, you talk about a tangible object there. Do you think as a maker you can get to a point, or maybe you feel you're at a point, or you maybe feel that that's a point you can achieve being a sort of strange thing in itself, that your work can become maybe a book of your journey effectively, like that work can be a communication of all of those steps?
Yeah, it will inevitably. No, I mean, it will just like. I can start writing a book about my journey now, but like these objects, if you would trace them down from the way they are spread throughout the world, if you would trace them down and place them in a collection, if you would place this chair next to the chair I made yesterday, you see it. Yeah. You want someone who can read like visual language, they will understand that what sort of development has. Yeah.
I think so. My personal belief is that as a maker, your work becomes a stamp in time for who you were at that time.
That's quite nice, that.
It is quite nice, that. Because the other thing as well is reading has interpretation. The way that different people interpret words, there's a disparity between the words on the page and how you interpret them. The object is the object. If I looked at one of your first knives versus your knife now, of course, we couldn't say this is the journey he's been on, this is where he's been, this is where he's been, this is where he's been, but we would see two very different people, I'm sure.
Yeah, that would become too analytical to explain a process which cannot be analyzed. But yeah, most definitely. I mean,
you get so much from, I said it to you earlier, the way you do anything is the way you do everything.
yeah,
You get so much from somebody's work. Seeing their work, seeing what it is they do. You can, and we obviously concentrate this podcast on the book, on the person, not on the product. But there is a reverse side of that, where us seeing the product, I mean, we've spoke to 500 plus makers by now. Us seeing the product, you get a good idea for who the person's going to be.
yeah,
We have a joke with one of our American friends, like, the world doesn't need another knife maker, because there seems to be a million knife makers. But then your stuff really stood out to us because of the way it was.
yeah,
Because of, there is clearly still a performance in it, there is clearly still a real, like, Japanese high quality chef knife influence, but it's very clearly yours.
yeah,
It's just a little bit different. Even your little vegetable knife at the end, the knotwood at the end is left as the knotwood. It's not cut, polished, straight line, it's left.
yeah.
It's nice.
And there's something about that I think becomes recognisable to the maker.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, if you as a maker are just in a vulnerable place where you allow to happen what needs to happen, then it just becomes the things you make become just a multiplication of who you are. So.
It's interesting you say that, a vulnerable place. Do you think that vulnerability allows you to succeed as a maker?
It's the key. It's the absolute key. I mean, without vulnerability, nothing, it would all not come the way it comes, because it's a very vulnerable thing. Yeah. It's a very vulnerable thing to, in a very cold world, to say I'm gonna listen to this compass within.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna, but like no other way.
Vulnerability is charged with such a negative connotation at the moment, though, isn't it? Like, vulnerability to the masses is seen as a negative, I think.
Yeah, it's very much a taboo, like a...
Yeah. Oh, you're vulnerable. Like, vulnerability and weakness is not the same thing. But
this is like, if it's like, and especially about considering like it's still very much like we are supposed as men to be super non-vulnerable and very...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who's going to carry the boats mentality, right?
I just read. You've been on the mental.
Man from End Retreat. Yeah.
Have you read the book? I just finished it. King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore.
No, but that was the teachings. I've not read the book, but that was exactly the 4 archetypes that we were taught on that.
Oh well, then you know.
Yeah, he was telling me all about it. I was like,
Like, read the book. It's the book I as a boy have been searching for.
What's the book? What's the actual book called?
King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore.
Warrior. Magician, Lover.
Take a quick note. So these were exactly the archetypes that. So to talk very openly about it, I went because, the monk mode philosophy that's been on the internet, like, disappear for 6 months, go and do what you have to do to be successful, like all that stuff, success being this weird word as it is anyway. I'd done that within my previous job, and I'm only now learning to call it my previous job for forever. And what nobody talks about is if you keep doing that, you keep deleting things from your life, like, I'd go to bed early, right, great, good thing, right? I would not go on nights out, right, good thing. I would not interact with certain people, right, good thing. But then what you realise is you're actually deleting more and more and more and more, to the point where if someone let me down, like say we were meeting at whatever time, and then someone, oh, I can't make it today, last minute, I was like, all right, cool, delete that, take that out of my life.
Yeah.
And then, in actual fact, what you realise is what you've deleted is all of the enjoyment and all of the connection and all of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And you just end up in this place where it's like, I'm achieving success. What is success, right? But there's no, how you describe it, energy in doing something. Like, I couldn't do something creative. No way, because I just didn't have that in me. And then the king archetype and the warrior archetype that we've done, the warrior archetype, being able to say no to people, no problem. Really good at that.
Yeah.
But then what you realise is, like, the lover archetype and seeing empathy for other people, non-existent.
Yeah.
Like, non-existent. And if I walked into your workshop to make a blade with you, or to do these tiny houses that we'll talk about later, there was no empathy for human connection there. And it was fine in the makerspace when we were doing these previous podcasts because I really resonate with those kind of people. But it's noticeable in certain aspects. There's conversations I couldn't go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That I feel like I should have gone down the rabbit hole. It's a total journey.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And you got a lifetime to just
to work it out, right?
Just to work it.
I like get a step further, you know. And then when you didn't accomplish certain things, you will return.
Yeah.
You will get another chance.
Yeah, exactly. So going back to, I went off on a tangent about the retreat thing there. Looking at your work again and your ability to let things flow. Why do you think that's so? Why do you think that's so important to you to just let things move in the way they do?
Yeah. Why it's so important?
Yeah.
Because that's why it's so important. I think because it's like to be doing another thing right now for me would be absolutely ridiculous, actually.
Really?
Like, yeah, why? Like I've seen that it's so interesting and that this is like, because it's opening this exact conversation that we have, which is a very important one. I think that's the main reason that then it evolved. Like maybe not even like directly with like we have a very, very direct conversation about the consequence of why I work the way I work, but like maybe it evokes a conversation completely elsewhere, which is, why is it important to do? Like I need to be more, a bit more concrete here. I think it's, give me a bit. Honestly, I think I'm starting to lose like the sense of why like doing it for any external reason besides that I just think it's an interesting game to play.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I'm actively trying to think in terms of why it's important to do, but this is like what was life trying to rid of me anyway. The fact that what I'm doing is for some sort of greater thing beyond me. This is the butterfly chase, you know?
Yeah,
This is the net. Why is it important? This is the net, actually. It's the net. The net is the question. Why is it important? The thing, it's maybe it's not even important. Maybe it's just another fart in the universe, you know?
Yeah, right.
Maybe it's just like...
It's just another thing that's happening. Yeah, it's not important. It's just, it is what you're doing.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
It's just now.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah. I think that's the answer, the true answer, because and I'm very close to that feeling, and the old world thinking is still very much based on this type of, we have to fulfill sort of a function in this. But once you see that, because I live this with such conviction, I live this sort of philosophy which is very contradictional to the exact question, why is it important? That's like a state of being where I'm so joyful about my work, and where I'm so like a child. I'm in wonder about the way life unfolds on me right now. That I can shine that energy onto other people, and if there's a reason for it, then that's the reason. That's the only reason. Like I'm just living it. I'm making the best out of my game, which I get here. I'm inhabiting this body. I'm getting an opportunity to play this human game. I'm making the best out of it, and in the best possible scenario, I make another person see, like, hey, he's just playing his game.
Yeah.
He's not. He's just going. Even though the world is a mad place,
Yeah.
he's just focused on the game. Why am I not?
On his game, not their game.
On his game.
Yeah.
Why am I not focused on mine? This is what happens then.
Yeah.
And then naturally, something will happen with someone else, and it's important for me to do, because it's important for my world of experience to just just live this life and to just get the gift and just go. Yeah. Because I'm born in a very privileged. I'm aware of all these immense privileges that I have. Supportive parents, just being the generally living in a body which is very still being regarded as maybe the most normal thing in the area where I live. If I would have had like a different tone skin color, maybe all these things. These are just privileges, which if I let them get covered in a sort of I start wearing the jacket of guilt, which this world is still trying to put on us. Like wear this jacket of guilt, because so you are either a victim because you are born in a situation which is not being regarded as
beneficial.
Beneficial.
Yeah. Because there's some real world struggles in some really shit places on the world.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Or you're born in a body which has these privileges, but then you're made feel guilty about it because or like it's in a very indirect way. But I believe that once there's like you start wearing this jacket of guilt, then these privileges that I got gifted apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know. They become unusable, and they are not in the place where they should be. I should just be very aware of it, and I should just go on, because then I can that the gift of that love and light that I got given, I can start to multiply it, and when it's surrounded in guilt, then it will fade away, you know.
Yeah.
If it makes sense what I try to say.
Yeah, I think so. I think I mean what I get from that is by you being unapologetically and authentically yourself, it may just inspire someone else to be themselves.
Yeah.
And really, I think
Don't
that's
try
what
to be someone else,
Yeah, don't try. I think that's what we're all striving for. Is just to be ourselves.
Yeah.
To work out who we are.
And be comfortable with that.
Yeah. And embrace the difference. Like this world has like a I think it's a sickening sort of behavior which you see now in societies where we try to equalize everything, but we forgot to embrace and to celebrate the difference, because it's all because of the difference that we are who we are. Yeah. And if we start to truly celebrate these differences and embrace them for what they are, then we become rich. Then we become truly rich. You know? Yeah. It's not about like and it's actually in embracing the difference where we find the oneness, I think, and the unity beneath all, which we are actually looking for. But it's in constantly classifying and making new boxes in which we can put new people because that's where they feel comfortable. Yeah. And then we stack up a pile of boxes. We still have a stack of boxes. Yeah. But we need to strip all the boxes, get everything out of the boxes, strip all the clothing, make possibly like a big orgy or something, I don't know. But just feel that we're one, you know? Yeah, we're one. You know? And when you are born with struggles that are, you know, you have to worry about much more fundamental things. This is a very true thing. Like people are born with, and they have to worry about much more fundamental things. We're now sitting in the warmth. They have to fight for warmth. We're now eating. We're drinking coffee. They have to fight to get food. Like this sort of, and the various social things coming with it. Like I'm madly aware of all those things, you know. But the only thing I can do to truly help heal the world, if there's something like that, is to heal myself to the extent where I live the gift that I got given, you know.
Show people that it can be done,
Yeah.
rather than tell people it can be done. Show people that you're doing it,
Yeah.
right? Like, look, I'm living this life.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something fundamental in being a maker? Because as a maker, you really are doing it yourself. Do you think there's something that, to package all of that up that we've talked about there, do you think that's fundamentally what being a maker can give you, all of that? Because really it's you versus you, or you versus your tools, or you versus the material, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
What comes out is only what you put in, right?
Yeah.
There's something quite special about that, isn't there? There's something really nice about that.
Yeah.
I also feel blacksmithing's a really tangible look at that, because it's such an ancient craft, right?
Yeah.
It is what pulled us out of the Dark Ages, effectively, being able to move metal or turn metal over. So having had all that experience and having made knives for, you know, a long time, and then being on this journey, why are we now moving into, and we should talk about this, the space that we're sat in here is your first tiny house, which, and I'd like you to talk about it more, you never built it to be a tiny house, you just, you know, it wasn't the tiny house thing that you were attracted to, it was the simplicity. So why are we now moving towards this as a space, rather than, I think the point is, a lot of makers will be like, I'm a blacksmith, or I'm a leather worker, or I'm a woodworker. And a lot of people, when I ask that first question, it's why I do ask that first question of, who are you? Not what do you do?
Yeah.
And more often than not, people will answer what they do. I'm interested in who are you?
Yeah.
Because the reason you do what you do is because of who you are.
Yeah.
And the reason the product is what it is, like we says, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So why are we making this shift to this world now?
Because if I'm discovering that I'm so multidimensional, how can I stick to just solely one thing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have to give in with the urge, and I shouldn't lose direction. I mean, I could like just could start to make all and everything. I mean, there's a course of direction in it, and that's given by the fact that I feel fascinated by certain things the more than I feel fascinated by other things, and that's the gift that we all get as individuals. Being fascinated by, that's the difference again. Being fascinated by something completely different than another person.
So is this shift just based on following fascination?
Yeah, and maybe allowing myself to give in with like an urge which was long there, but I didn't dare to because I was indeed being identified as solely the knife maker.
Okay.
That's quite a hard thing to detach from a lot of people, I think. And maybe for yourself.
Yeah,
like
sure.
Being identified as the knife maker. But as I said earlier, like I'm only just literally teaching myself to be like, you're not the mechanical engineer.
No, because if this process of identification with something which you are not doesn't matter anymore, then it falls away automatically, you know. So I think it's if it's about my process of trying to allow some sort of outer message to flow through me, or a very worldly message, or a very whatever it is, like some sort of thing which I cannot comprehend with the rational understanding, but it's just a very mystical thing, this very mystical thing, which works very transformative on the personal level, then what I'm doing there is just creating an environment where I can invite these experiences.
Yeah, I like that. Mm-hmm.
For myself and possibly for others. Because when I'm not there anymore, the space will be there and it will carry that spirit that I put into it, you know. And it's trying to this like immense engagement with life. This is what I try to capture there. Like, there's a reason for like waking up at 5, doing the thing. There's a reason for taking the daily cold ice baths. There's a reason for like trying to stay away from crowded places from the city. There's a reason for banning out like the usage of alcohol and and not smoking weed, not drinking, not smoking tobacco anymore. It's to get on a really clear line. And it's to be with that clarity. I am convinced that if this is how I feel, and this is how I go through life, and this manifests in the material world when I create. This is that energy that will be feelable, and this is the ambiance. This is like the atmosphere which you will be able to experience when you are in that second space there. It's what already was. It's here the case, but I was in a different step of my journey, and there I'm also in a different step of my journey. And I think it's I've had it happen, like there's like proof where like I had like an interviewer come over from like a food magazine, and all of a sudden he was telling stuff about his relationship with his mother and so on.
Really?
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? So it's like and I think it's not just me, it's me being invited and me being vulnerable enough to receive the thing he wants to talk about. But it's also being the space loaded with his energy, which allows him to open up about these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I truly believe we can, if we start to understand how this dynamic works, we can decode it and we can capture it in creation, and that's what I'm doing with the second space.
How did you described it to me earlier very well. You're not trying to build tiny houses, you're not trying to build, what is it you called it? Like,
it's an envelope.
An envelope for humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
It's lovely.
Or like envelope, or it's what it is basically is just it's also like a space center. Truly, it's a space center. It's for taking off. It's for taking flight.
Yeah.
And it's for crashing down also.
Right.
It's for crashing down. It's for crumbling down. It's for deconstructing yourself. It's for like just having to, and that's it maybe. It's just like creating a space where you would feel the ability to look back on things and say, fuck, I was wrong. Mm-hmm. Or not I was wrong, or like I wasn't wrong, because then you're already like in the judgmental side of things. But I wasn't kind enough to myself enough, or I was like I did something which, you know, if I would have done it like this, then yeah, that's all. It's all still carries like the sense of a judgment in there and what I say now, but to just look back on things and be really reflective and see what the consequence was of a certain decision that you made. I think that's the proper way to say it without sort of a judgment, you know.
Do you think that comes with the simplicity of these tiny houses, human envelopes? Because there is no distractions.
Yeah.
Right, it's not like you're in a house and you've got a TV on the wall there and you've got another TV in the kitchen and you've got a radio through there. Like, you've got a stove, a bed, a kitchen and some books in the wall.
I mean, sure, it's like the bare essentials of... it's trying to capture just the bare essentials of which we need. But it's also just very much where it's placed also. Like the context in where it's placed. I believe it could still function as a space center if you would place this space in the midst of a city, you know. It could be like sort of a safe space where all of a sudden you're feeling less of this rush of this outside world. Mm-hmm. But for sure, it's just being... It just gets an extra boost if you would play it in nature, you know. Where nature already has this sort of slow down temperament.
Yeah.
Because essentially it's about slowing down. Mm-hmm. And slowing down is a brave thing. It's the bravest thing that we can do, is to slow down.
That's good advice.
Really?
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, the bravest thing you can do is slow down. That's really good advice.
It is because to follow this rushed up sense and to give in with that. That's of course, that's what the even from the maker's perspective, that's also like a danger, you know. That's like to fall into that to that rushed up stance and giving in with it. But there's nothing born from that side which is truly in like a sort of in a deep connection with who we truly are, because you cannot be when you're like rushing through life.
Yeah, you rarely make a mistake when you've slowed down. Mistakes are made, and again, mistakes being, mistakes are made when you're rushing. Like that's when we all make our mistakes, is when we're rushing around. I've got multiple points on my driving license. I've buggered up multiple things, and it's always been when I'm rushing.
Yeah. So what does that teach us? That we have to rush less and that we have to slow down. And it's a brave thing, because it is it's the anti-movement to this world. It's the only anti-movement to this world, I believe.
Anti-movement, yeah.
Yeah.
It's to do the it's like not to do the opposite because we want to rebel against it, but because the other thing doesn't make sense. The rush thing doesn't make sense, because you cannot perceive the things. You cannot perceive life with the richness that it has if you're rushing through it. Because the impulses, you become overloaded with them. Well, and if you truly sit down and you like get it all in, then wow, like even like you can be touched to the bone by simple events, as a bird passing by, the first flower in spring, the trees falling down in autumn, because you recognize yourself in these events, and you will start to. That's what the city does. I was in Amsterdam. I understand why people are so arrogant in cities and why they think they are so big in cities. It's because they don't see the stars and they don't realize that they are very, very small.
Yeah.
They don't have the richest things of humanity. Cities are places, they condensed like all the ugliness down into one place, and that's what we call city, and that's where we take away all this cosmical and eternal connection to what it is that we truly are. And that's they ban it out in these places. And everyone's wondering why everyone feels horrible being there.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And equally, I don't want to take away. There is people that live in cities, people that love living in cities. There's also people that have to live in cities. This is just your opinion and your thoughts and your
feelings. Up because they live in this way and they live in this facilitatory role of this modern life. I can do what I do. So I'm all grateful and so it's not a sort of a major bash or like a crush to this life, but it's more like I see the sickening aspect of it, which is
and you feel you can see that because you're detached from it.
Yeah. Because I'm able to observe it and see it
through a different lens.
Because I have the gift of not having to be in a place like this. Yeah.
It'd be very easy for someone to be listening to this and thinking, like, well, how do you make your living? How do you? Because we're kind of programmed that way. If you're as tuned in as if you're like, oh well, this doesn't matter. There's a lot of people that'll be listening thinking, yeah, but how do you make a living? Because we do still need to make money. You can't phone your electricity company and pay your bills with I feel really good today. Yeah. So how do you think that this, and how do you think you've been able to package up this feeling and this mentality to to run it through your work to then be able to successfully finance all of this? Yeah,
it's because like when I made this, I had this cocktail coming together of getting the place where I could build it, getting the trailer base, and having earned enough money to start me off with like buying the materials. Yeah. So this is like what I could finance from this like that journey, which means that now I'm covering a very fundamental need in like it's already covered. I don't have to worry about it. Like I still have my rent, I still have my car, and I my food and so on. But I have I already proved myself that I can fully sustain it by living there on the terrain and paying the rent of that place where I was on. They kicked me off. I now live with my parents again. Immense gift also, which like also true is surely allows me to move in the way that I did. it's only because they made the sacrifice that they made, my parents. So it's like, it's a big tribute to them more than anything else.
And the money that you made to save that, you have been, since day one, a full-time maker, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's not like you had a part-time job.
I was already selling like stuff when we were in economy class. They were learning about economy. I was selling knives all over the world back then.
Really?
Yeah.
When I was still like doing my YouTube, it was quite international. Then I went more local when I started really doing it full time, because I saw the purpose of getting into the true connection with the customer. And recently I started selling some things randomly, all of a sudden internationally again, and shipped out some stuff to the US and got some interested from that side. Funny enough, I don't know how these things come, but it's the same sort of mystic that we try to describe. Is also what facilitates the whole journey, because I don't know, like it's a big field of the unknown.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, and I gave in with the I don't know.
Right.
Like I don't know, like what I'm doing, especially with the second space. Like I've been in financially funny situations this year, but things all landed in exactly the right moment, always. And I started seeing that there's big power. Like it was spiraling downwards, because I was using my word to other people, saying that things were not going the way that they were supposed to go. And this was why they were spiraling down. And then I observed, I'm saying this and this is what's happening. What if I now say, I'm going to make a batch of knives, I'm going to sell them, and they're going to provide that I can continue. And I did this, like this very active manifestation. And it works like this. You put your word to it first. You might not believe it with the full 100% internally, but you believe the majority of it.
Yeah. Believe enough to lean into it.
You lean into it, and it slowly unfolds on you, and somehow, like, and this means that I've been trying to read that as the signs which try to tell me that I'm on the right track, providing this whole journey, you know, that, and everything's coming sort of in a really undescribable way. I don't know, but it's very unstable. Yeah, it's rough also sometimes.
Yeah.
As in, like, rough. What's rough? I'm warm and I'm having food.
Yeah,
but
right. It's rough.
Mentally, I'm sometimes like, fuck. Like I'm on the edge of having to sell. You know.
What would you say to anybody else that's on the edge right now, or on the edge in the future? Anyone else that's like, we talked a little bit about it before, like, there's a lot of people that when we've gone to then put their articles up digitally after the book, that have closed shop. You know, you could have closed shop when it last got hard. What would you say to anyone in that position?
When I was crumbling down, and like when I had like my last phase of deconstructing, or like things fell apart and on my side, there was a designer from I think he's from New Orleans, Bradley he's called, and then he said to me, like, enjoy the crumble down. You crumble down, and then you can collect yourself afterwards with all the parts you still want to take, and the rest you leave, you know. So essentially, for anyone who's having a hard time in this very moment, it's just an opportunity for you're like, maybe a part of you is dying at the moment, but that's just an opportunity for birth. Try to see that it's the opportunity for birth, and you will suffer less along in the process of your collapse. It will still be unpleasant, but you will suffer less from it. And then afterwards, take what you want to take and
leave the rest. Yeah.
And shoot again. Like, but also prepare that it's a cyclical thing. It's a cyclical thing, and that's what Bradley also said to me. You will learn. This is just learning you how to face these things, and you will be able to, when the next time you read the signs of something coming like this. That's why I made the sign, because I thought this is either like it's an opening for a manic episode, or it's the opening for something great to happen. I need to remind myself of it. I started reading on the things that I knew from the past. So all that's happening in a negative way is just another. It's just giving you a lesson which you can take on your following journey, and you know, as I start to recognize with myself when a possibility of this collapse is coming, I need to remind a certain piece of myself, and I have people connecting me to reality enough in order to wake me up and say, you're drifting off. Like my girlfriend is she without her, you know, I wouldn't be able to move in the mentally and spiritually in the places that I can move in now, because I know she will
snap me back and
she will snap me back.
yeah.
And there's a feminine strength which is much more connected to that core and that self-centeredness, which we men tend to lose with more ease. You know, so we need that strength along our side in order to get where we want to be. It's and at the same time we like it's a mutual thing. It's like a sort of a, you know,
a yin and yang.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is to find that yin to your yang, whether it's a partner, whether it's a workshop partner, whether it's just a good friend, for someone in the making space?
Well, it's yin and yang, so it will be there. You don't have to look for it, I think. It will come in the way it comes.
Maybe recognise it. It's the better way to say it. It'll be there. You just need to recognise it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's coming up now? Do you look much at the future for what you're making? You're obviously building the second one of these tiny houses.
Yeah, because we haven't actually said much of what you do yet.
Yeah, we've not really said much about what you make.
Yeah, fun. That's always yeah.
The quick summary: knife maker since you've been doing this for a long time.
Like I'm doing that now for 7 years, I think.
Yeah. So 7-year knife maker who's now progressing into, with this newfound energy from the last couple of years, progressing into still doing the knives and still doing the metal work. You're doing a lot of furniture now. We see a lot of furniture and
spaces. Like, this is what I want to make. I think this is, if there's anything to watch in the future, I would like to lean in more with like making things which you know, surround the human.
Yeah.
Like you made that with a friend, didn't you?
Yeah.
The fire, the stove, which is awesome.
Yeah, you were just, you know, I mean, you like, you within that friendship we made that thing, and I like that, and I feel that warmth, you know, it shines on, and I want to meaningful coming togethers with people who also are on similar investigations and try to bundle our power and make great things. I don't know what's coming. I just want to do wild stuff, and I want to do move in fields where I'm very uncomfortable and do things which feel very
challenging,
irresponsible and
irresponsible. Yeah.
Like irresponsible in a way that I'm like that I engage with something which feels like, I don't know, like I'm not ready for this, and at the same time I am, because I'm ready to dive in and give in with the not knowing.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through larger objects, as in, like, not because I want to make large objects, but because I see the power of making, or like the power of the strength more of making something which surrounds the human much more than the objects which is
the human surrounds.
Yeah. It's a
very
very spacious thing, just.
Yeah, it is brave, Kate. You're right. You're right. It's very brave. Do you think there's part of you, certainly in these last few years, that was unfulfilled by making knives?
No, I was not unfulfilled. Not in that sense that I was feeling greatly unfulfilled along any part of my journey. It was just like, it's just like a gradual stretching. It's a stretching of your ability that you feel like I can actually do anything if I put in the effort and the time and so on.
Yeah.
And this just stretched up. It stretches up with time, and this means that I have to give in with this like sort of feeling in order to stretch it up even further, in order to investigate what can happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have the skills, like you've built the skills in being a maker.
Yeah.
The end product, to many degrees, doesn't matter.
No.
You have the skills, you have the mindset, the skills, the ethos, and that's what people are buying. Whether it's a knife, a spoon, a tea kettle,
It doesn't matter. Like
a stove or a house, people are buying into your ethos in building and making.
And I think I'm just greatly fascinated based. So I really developed myself in the craft side of things when I did this Damascus with folding of the steel and making the mosaic patterns and understanding this process of translating vision into drawing onto the steel, which is a difficult thing to sort of master, to sort of get control over, but it was what's happening in this field of making the Damascus. It's much more on my control side of things, and that's what I start to discover, is where I start to surrender and submit to the immense force of the fire and the elementary force and so on. Is when I move into a field where it's much less about my what I demand from an object or something, or from the process, but where I let go is what we all talked about now in the past while. And I feel I get like great opportunities when it comes to much more various basic things. So this chair that I made yesterday was very childlike. It's like it's a bit ridiculous if you know that I can do also very on the craft technical side of things. I can do mad things with this steel. But I'm choosing not to. It's like sort of knowing your inner beast, but like taming it, and it's and. Because I observed, it was years ago that I for the first time started to get interested in that, and that I observed that that's an interesting field to play in by listening to certain music of various super great art, like the great jazz musicians who learn, like, who master that. You see them all. The curve is always like, it's in a craft. It's like they move upwards. They understand the instrument with such great care that they can do the most difficult things, but then they start to deconstruct themselves. The world start to misunderstand them, but it's because that's where the true thing is happening. That's where this channeling of this outside message occurs. It's when we are this master of this thing, which is a very boring thing. It's a very boring thing to be on the throne and to be the tyrant who says this is what happens and this is what happens.
Do you think there's a confidence in that? Or maybe that is confidence, knowing that you can do all of these skills, knowing that you can make it go this way.
Yeah.
Choose not.
But you're doing it this way.
But it's what we need as humans. We need to prove ourselves that we can do something ridiculous before we can. And that's too bad, but yeah, well, it's like this. Yeah. And then now I see for what it is, and indeed, like I'm trying, because it's about my world of experience, right? If I'm playing the game and I need to enjoy, then I just want to, indeed, like the things that I'm making now for people. That's also what, like, I got comments from old followers who then, from my YouTube, they turned to my Instagram. They said, you were making great pieces of art back then, and what are you doing now? They don't understand because this is also what I did with these knives. They came out of the fire and I started to do less profile grinding. I just left it for what it was. And people don't understand, because it's like, hey, are you now like not interested anymore to do this very intricate things, these very technical things? Yes, I am to a certain extent, but it's not, I think it's not about this like the guys who want to do this and want to go nuts with this, like, go do it. Yeah. I'm all down for it, but like it's not where I think I'm not interested in it.
It's interesting, isn't it, though, because I would place a bet on that profile ground beautiful knife. I'd place a bet that the unprofile ground, the knife you're doing now, the hammer and forging work on it will be better than that.
As in, like, quality-wise?
Quality-wise, yeah. Because it's unapologetically you. Like, people see sharp lines and sharp edges. You know, you grind the back of the knife, you get it absolutely perfect, no wibbles or wobbles in it. They view that as perfect. They view that
because
as in hands
they
up.
just look at the physical plane of things.
Correct. But if you then look at the hammer work, because that's really where it is. It's about how you move the steel, not what you take away from it, not what you grind out of it. How you move the steel and how the steel... I've seen a number of beautiful shaped knives, and when you look closely at it, there's delaminations in it, or there's, you can see in the way that the oil takes to the knife that the Damascus isn't right. There is delams in it, or there's delams trying to come up. The finished profile and edges that we all associate, like car design, right? The beautiful body shape, that doesn't tell you if it's a good car or not. The body shape's just the body shape.
No, and then
what's in it? It's what's in it.
Yeah. So how do we value what's good? Is it just on the performance physical plane of things? Is it just like this? Is it just this dimension, or do we start to value all the other dimensions which are added to it, which shine through if you let the material speak?
Yeah.
And this is
let the maker speak behind it.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what Kate and I are trying to do. We're trying to show that the quality is not in the finished piece. That has to be of a quality. But the quality is not in the finished piece. The quality is in the person who put the time into it. Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So the way you put time into this, or your knives, or your forge, or your stove, or like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah.
And that's what I think it all comes down to.
Yeah.
Kate, is there anything else you want to cover while we're here?
No, I think we touched very beautiful spaces where we don't have to
say anymore.
Good.
Like it's, I think, like, no, because of the attention, like, no, the climax is reached, and that's always when you need to like sort of.
One last question though: what advice would you give your younger self?
To be more trusting and more sweet to myself, and see that it's all gonna come. That I don't have to, that I have to rush less. That I just have to wait for the right time for things to unfold the way they're supposed to unfold.
That seems to be a common one, doesn't it?
Very much so.
Trust yourself a wee bit more.
But we're just conditioned to be very hard and very, very tough on ourselves, and it's.
There is a magic in that, being tough on yourself, though. There is a magic to a point.
And we need it also, like a sort of a determination, an urgency, and a direction. But like,
direction, I think's right.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be tough on ourselves, but we need to know what that direction we're being tough on ourselves is.
Yeah. And we need very open spaces in which we can totally break down and be super not tough on ourselves, but very, very sweet and very soft and very. This is.
Nice.
We'll close it at that. Thank you ever so much for your time.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Been a very different podcast from the majority of the podcast.
But it's nice. But that's why we do it, because everybody's different, and everybody, people will take something from this, or they'll take.
All we want to do, all we want to do with it, as Kate says, is for people to take something from it, for it to just instill a little bit of a mindset shift, or just it doesn't need to instill a shift. It just needs to open a thought chain.
Yeah.
If it opens a thought chain, we've done what we want to do.
Yeah, and you do, because you just bring the story of people.
Yeah, we try.
People.
We try our best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.